Decisions shape our destiny. We are the average of all the decisions we've made in our entire life. And if I can get you to make better decisions by just a small uptick, the results throughout your organization will be geometric. See if this sounds familiar. I'd wake up every morning at 5 or 5:30. My smartphone would be my alarm. I would start looking at my work emails, text messages, calendar items. My heart rate would spike, worrying over what I just saw. I'd jump out of bed, and then like a hamster on the wheel, I was always running. I was always reactive, barely keeping my head above water, fending off 100 distracting messages at once.
We busy professionals make 35,000 semi-conscious and conscious decisions a day, ladies and gentlemen. 35,000 a day. But if we can learn a simple system for making better decisions, then we liberate our future and we leap our careers, our companies, and our communities forward. So I first went to Japan when I was on active duty in the Marine Corps. I stayed in Japan studying Zen meditation and Japanese martial arts. I was attracted to the Marine Corps for their warrior image. I was attracted to that in Japan, of the samurai image of serving. I translated that into modern, peaceful warrior principles and applying them to the battlefield of business. The word MUSHIN is Japanese, and it means no mind. But I like people to think of it as no distractions or clarity. The concept of MUSHIN was founded on the Japanese battlefields where the samurai warriors fought to the death. They had to make life or death decisions in not seconds, but milliseconds. The samurai warrior cleared their mind free from the shackles of fear and ego, free from the shackles of guilt, obligation. It's the freedom to make the right decision at the right time, all the time. That's what I'm passionate about, is arming successful professionals for decision-making battle. I've studied decision-making and battling for my own life and fighting my own personal demons of cancer. And I've studied decision-making in the boardroom and in many different businesses. And this is what I've discovered. There's 5 decision-making traps that we all fall into. But likewise, there's 5 simple solutions to avoid or conquer these decision-making traps.
Trap number 1 is the clogged arteries trap, distractions that we're facing us at every minute of our lives. The solution is called the double 5 count. Trap number 3 is the trap of extremes, from making decisions too quickly or too slowly, and the solution is called the 3x15 rule. The 5th and final trap is a trap of bad influences, such as fear and ego and anger. We might be faced with a tough business situation and think, I don't have any good decisions here. But when you pause to stop and think, where are my strengths holding me back? Where are the great decisions that I cannot see? I know they're there. And that true victory is achieved through harmony. You are juggling hand grenade decisions, not holding them, throwing them the right time, the right direction all the time, but especially when the pace is fast and the stakes are high. That is the power, that is the promise, that is the practice of the MUSHIN way.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Veltri.
What you see before you are a culmination of all the decisions I've made in my life. And this reminds me of a time when I was in the Marine Corps and I had a very important decision to make. You see, I was holding a live hand grenade and I forgot what to do. I couldn't remember if it was thumb clip, pull pin, or pull pin, thumb clip, but I was standing there holding a live hand grenade. Now, somehow I did manage to rip the pin out and it's go time. You cannot put the pin back in. I've got 30 of my Marine buddies watching to see if I'm going to screw this up. I've got a Marine drill instructor right in my face, purposefully screaming at me, causing fear, confusion, distracting me. And I've got a big decision to make here. 3 choices. Choice number 1, I make a good decision and throw the thing. But like every good decision, it has to be executed properly. Because what good is it if I don't throw it far enough, or at the right time, or in the right direction? Option number 2. I'm so overwhelmed by my fear I am holding a live hand grenade. Or my ego. I don't want to look bad in front of my Marine buddies. My fear and ego shackle me, and I make a bad decision, dropping the hand grenade, killing myself, killing and injuring my Marine buddies. And then there's always a third option, where I choose to neither make a good decision and throw the hand grenade, nor make a bad decision and drop it, get it over with. But I choose to make no decision and hold on to that hand grenade for the rest of my life. So let me ask you, how many of your decisions in your business and personal life are like that? Okay, let me get rid of this grenade. Well, the Japanese have a word, a concept called MUSHIN. And this word MUSHIN literally means no mind. But I'd like you to think of it as no distractions or clarity. And this concept of MUSHIN was developed hundreds of years ago on the feudal battlefields, where the samurai warriors weren't texting, they were fighting to the death with razor-sharp swords. Forget about seconds. Life or death for them was decided in milliseconds. The samurai warriors couldn't be distracted. They had to clear their mind. And this practice of MUSHIN frees the mind from the shackles of fear and ego, frees the mind from the shackles of guilt and obligation, frees the mind of distractions. So the mind becomes calm and clear and reflective like a calm body of water, polished to a mirror reflection. You can simply see each and every situation for what it is, unencumbered by these shackles. From there, you can make the right decision at the right time, all of the time. Now, I'm sure you've heard of the best-selling book called The Art of War by Sun Tzu. It talks about wonderful strategies and tactics, especially how to apply them in the business world. MUSHIN is the philosophy that powers that art of war. That's the clarity of the enlightened warrior.
Researchers at Cornell University have discovered that our kids, these darling boys and girls of ours, they make 3,000 semi-conscious to conscious decisions a day. Kids make 3,000 decisions a day. Now, I have a 3.5-year-old daughter. This is her, little blondie here, Kiara. And we know kids don't make the best decisions. If you can see there, she has a pair of scissors. I took this picture 2 weeks ago. She's cutting off the top knot of her little friend's ponytail. Needless to say, her friend's mom hasn't brought her back to our house for a play date since. So. And not only our young kids, but these college kids don't do the smartest things either in their decisions. Yeah, I find it hilarious. The guy's protecting it, like that's going to stop this 200-pound man from landing on you. And adults with kids don't make the best decisions all the time. Might be convenient, but I'm not taking my daughter to school that way. Now, speaking of adults, okay, if kids make 3,000 decisions a day, how many decisions a day do busy professionals like us make semi-conscious, conscious? How many do you think? And here's a hint, more than 3,000. 9,000, who else? Researchers at Cornell University have discovered that we busy professionals and the customers that we're selling to and our direct reports and our spouse make 35,000 semi-conscious to conscious decisions a day, ladies and gentlemen. 35,000 a day. 365 days a year, that's 12 million decisions annually we're faced with. Okay? And as we know, even us adults don't make the best decisions. Have you ever seen this happen? I literally drove into a gas station and caught a guy smoking the other day too. Or, what I find fascinating about this is that there's two bad decisions in this photo. There's the guy taking the selfie about to get consumed by the fireball. Then there's obviously somebody taking a picture of him about to get consumed. So here's the challenge. We don't have a simple system for making better decisions. And if we're faced with hand grenade decisions, if we're faced with 35,000 every day, we have to do something about it. Because if we're basing those decisions on misguided cues or the latest fad or what worked in the past or what our gut's telling us to do, we're going to make bad decisions. Or not the best. We're going to make mediocre decisions. And I'm not okay with mediocrity. I'm not okay with the 800-member companies here, the 500,000 employees, the millions of lives that these companies impact, being mediocre leaders. That leads to regret. Right? Regret that we missed out on the big promotion, regret that we lost a big client, regret that we never fulfilled our true life passion. But if we can learn a simple system for making better decisions, then we liberate our future and we leap our careers, our companies, and our communities forward. And that's what I'm passionate about teaching. I'm passionate about teaching successful professionals like us how to make better decisions so you're able to do that. And I've studied decision making in many different contexts. I've studied life or death decision making in combat, in the Marine Corps and in the martial arts. I've studied decision making in fighting for my own life, in battling my personal demons of cancer. I've studied decision making in the boardroom and in many different businesses, and I've studied decision making science in academic institutions, and this is what I've discovered. There are 5 decision making traps that we all fall into, that our teams fall into, that our kids, our spouses fall into, but there are 5 simple solutions that can help us conquer these decision making traps. And we can make better decisions when faced with those 35,000 a day, when we're faced with hand grenade decisions, and able to move our lives forward.
I have devised the highly scientific, the highly delicious solution called the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup solution. And what do we know about Reese's Peanut Butter Cups? It combines the best of both worlds. Chocolate plus peanut butter equals my daughter's favorite fruit group, the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. So this is a writing exercise, and we're all going to do this. There's paper on your tables. Please grab a piece of paper and grab a pencil if you have one. And this is what I'd like us all to do. I'd like you all to pick one decision that you've been putting off making for a couple days, a couple weeks, or a couple months even. What's one hand grenade decision you're holding on to? It could be a little tiny hand grenade decision. What do we dress the kids up for Halloween? Or where do we go over the holidays? It could be a bigger decision you're struggling with. Do I take this new opportunity at a new company? Do I get out of a bad relationship? Do I have that tough conversation with an employee? There is a decision you're putting off making. Or if you made a bad decision, and guess what? I practice this all the time. I still struggle. I put off decisions. I make bad decisions, so I know you're doing it too. So if you have a bad decision you made and you don't see a way out of it, write that down. So jot something you're struggling with. What's keeping you up at night? What's one decision you're putting off making? And then the solution works like this. It's the power of visual display. You should do this with your team, but now we're going to do it solo. If you have a big whiteboard at your office, you can do it as a brainstorming exercise. On one side, you're going to write everything that you're feeling, your thoughts, your instinct is telling you, the Ferris Bueller side. On the other side, you're going to write just the data, the who, what, where, when, why, just the facts. And for example, let's use the example of maybe you have a chance to take on a promotion at work. So if you're deciding whether you need to take on this promotion, on the Ferris Bueller side, the feelings, the gut, what your heart's telling us, maybe it's, I really like my new boss. Or it's interesting work. Or I want the challenge. It sounds like fun. Just what you're feeling. And on the other side, just the data. Well, if I take that new job, I'll make 20 grand more. I'll have to travel 30% of the time though. I'll get 4 more direct reports. Just the data. And then what you're looking to do is generate that sweet spot. Look at things visually. See some bad ideas, cross it off. Circle things, move it over. Or draw a blank and realize they're all bad ideas. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to work on this, and I'm going to talk while we do. But please, successful people do the things unsuccessful people won't. Let's start working on a decision you're putting off making. 60 seconds. Let's go. Now, I achieved a level of MUSHIN. I achieved a level of clarity the hard way. I got cancer. I had never been sick a day in my life when I found the lump. So it turns out I had testicular cancer. I had emergency surgery to remove my right testicle, but we caught it early. Everything was good. There was no spread into my lymph nodes. I just needed intensive observation, which was blood tests and CAT scans to ensure I was cancer-free. 6 months went by, blood tests, CAT scans, blood tests, CAT scans. I got this beat, looking good. And then I got that bone-chilling message from my oncologist. Hey, Michael, we have to talk. The cancer spread to your lungs. And I'm sure all of us here have an experience with cancer, friends or family members. Some have won their battle against cancer, others have not. All cancer treatments are different. In my case, I had a very aggressive form of cancer that had metastasized to my lungs, and I needed a very aggressive form of chemotherapy, which required me to undergo treatment Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. for 3 months. And everything you hear about chemotherapy is true. Your hair falls out. I became unnaturally thin, and your skin takes on a gray pallor. You're literally dying from the inside out. And I got through those 3 months because I didn't have a choice. There was no remission with the type of cancer I had. You either died or you did not. After that, I had one more procedure to go to be cancer-free, and that was surgery. Surgery to remove half of my left lung where those dead tumors resided, and it was a success. I was restricted to a wheelchair because I didn't have the lung capacity to walk. A few months later, I was able to walk. A few months later, I was able to go for a run. A few years later, I ran my first marathon on 1.5 lungs as a fundraiser for the American Cancer Society. Thank you. And the reason I'm sharing that story with you is that going into cancer, if I didn't think I had good choices, why even bother? Lay down and die. It took a life-threatening illness like cancer for me to realize you always have good choices. Everything else is easy. And you guys don't have to suffer the same way I did to realize that you always have good choices. You've got to win that losing battle against distractions. And in the short amount of time today, I can't give you every tool and technique to win that battle. Start by putting down those cell phones. Realizing that you're even fighting the battle against distractions is a step in the right direction. Practice not letting your fear and ego shackle you, and realize that you always have good decisions. I don't care what it is. So every time you're faced with a hand grenade decision, you're not holding on to it. You're throwing it effortlessly. You can juggle those hand grenades, throw them every time.
And it culminates with this iconic consumer product brand called Old Spice. Who remembers these beautiful bottles, right? I bought these for my dad. I bought these for my dad years ago. Old Spice was created in 1938. One fragrance. I don't even know if you want to call it a fragrance. It was called Glacial Falls. Okay, look, there's talcum powder. I still remember my dad putting big baby powder on them, cologne, aftershave lotion. So Old Spice was falling victim to all these 5 traps I shared with you. Solutions, Axe body spray came on the scene. All those cool boys spraying themselves, eating away at Old Spice's margins. The word old is in their product line, okay? Come on. I mean, you might think you have a problem with your association name. No, if it's not old, what, okay? These guys were getting killed. Okay, but then they applied the 5 solutions, starting with a strong team. In 2008, they hired Weedman and Kennedy, this amazing advertising firm that helped them with all the other traps. They got free and clear of distractions. They were able to find a good balance between their head and heart, art and science. They had brainstormed ideas and came up on the one, and then they executed it. They needed to get their swagger back. They needed to be a premier brand. They wanted to find that key market of males aged 12 to 34 and double sales within 2 years. 2008, they rolled out Old Spice Swagger. And they still call it Old Spice. Nothing changed besides the way they presented it. They made great decisions along the way. They didn't fall victim to historical bias and say, well, we've always offered those clunky white bottles. That's our brand. Yeah, maybe if you want to sell to those Brooklyn hipsters, right? If that small niche of throwback people isn't going to make the numbers. And if you've ever seen these commercials, I saw one in the room yesterday. The commercials are hilarious. They're light. Old Spice targeted older, distinguished gentlemen. Now they're targeting boys 12 to men 34 with hilarious commercials, with a great product line. They're thriving. And in that 2-year period where they wanted to double sales, they quadruple sales. Now, how would you like to quadruple your membership? Well, some of you might not say, oh my God, I can't deal with any more. Right? But it's about making the right decisions. And if you tell me, right, I make all the right decisions all the time, you can turn your back and one of your staff members are going to do the equivalent of what my daughter did cutting somebody's hair, okay? You don't want them to do that with your biggest client. So it's a practice. It's a practice. We're never going to avoid all of those traps. We're going to fall in those traps. Our staff is going to fall into our traps. Our kids are going to fall in their traps more often than not. So it's simply a practice of getting better at decision making. If you're making better decisions, you're impacting your career, your company, and your community. And as we start to wind down, I'd like you to do one other thing for me. On the table are envelopes. Please grab an envelope. Okay, it's called the law of diminishing return. I've given you a lot of tools and distinctions. You have a resource, but tomorrow life is going to get in the way. You're going to be faced with 35,000 decisions, and you're going to start to forget this. So what I'd like you to do is get a fresh sheet of paper, and I want you to write down 4 things. You're going to put this in the envelope and address the envelope to yourself. I'm going to mail it to you 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from now, when you're distracted and you're wondering, what do I do in this situation? You're going to get a reminder from yourself. Write yourself a note. Hey, really do this. Okay, and these are the 4 things I want you to write down. Write down my resource page so you can go back and take advantage of it. And then I want you to write down the 3 Ds. What is that decision you chose today that you will no longer be a victim to? What is that hand grenade decision you've been putting off making? Write it down. What are you doing about it? What action items did you come up with? What would have to be true for this option to be the best choice? If then it. Write down a couple things. Don't worry about how you're going to do it. Don't fall victim to the tyranny of how. Get into action. Any action is better than no action. And the third thing is give yourself a timeline by when. You know, I'm going to decide whether or not I'm going to take this new job by next week, September 20th. Write it down. You will get this letter from yourself in 2 weeks. Hopefully that will support you again. Because again, we need that practice. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Grab an envelope, please. The to and from is your same address. When you're done, just leave it on your table. We're going to collect it up, and we'll mail it to you. So let's take 2 minutes to fill that out, please.